Stop for a moment and consider the exhaustion of your own existence. Not the physical tiredness from a long day, but the spiritual fatigue of constantly holding up a wall. You have spent years curating a version of yourself that is palatable, safe, and admired. A version that nods when it disagrees, smiles when it hurts, and performs stability while the internal structure is quietly crumbling. But I am not here to speak to that polished version of you. I am here to speak to the stranger you left behind, the one you buried because they were too intense, too angry, too hungry, too wild, or simply too much. That is the version of you that is hiding in the shadow. You believe you are the architect of your life, making conscious choices. But what if your life is actually a theater production? A carefully constructed mask worn to ensure survival, acceptance, and love. Yet behind that mask, there is a voice you have silenced so often that its whisper is now barely audible. You tell yourself, "I'm fine. My life is good." But the silence betrays you. There is a quiet, aching hollowness that visits you in the middle of the night, or in those sudden pauses when the distraction fades, leaving you with the haunting question, whose life am I really living? Carl Jung, one of the most important thinkers in modern psychology, believed that our deepest suffering doesn't come from trauma, mistakes, or even pain. It comes from fragmentation. It stems from disowning parts of ourselves that we've labeled as bad, wrong, dangerous, or shameful. Usually not because they are inherently evil, but because someone, somewhere, taught us they were. Perhaps your family taught you that anger is ugly, that sexuality is sinful, that ambition is selfish. Maybe society convinced you that vulnerability is weakness, that power corrupts, that being different is a problem to be corrected. So, to survive, you split. You took the parts of yourself that didn't fit the mold and hid them. But those parts didn't disappear. They sank into the unconscious, into what Jung called the shadow. And there, in the darkness, they grew. Now, without you even realizing it, those disowned parts are running your life. They manifest as sabotage, projections, anxiety, depression, addictions, broken relationships, fake smiles, and unexplained emptiness. These are all symptoms of a self you've betrayed. You are not lost. You are not broken. You are just divided. And wholeness, true psychological liberation, will never come from trying to be more perfect. It will only come when you finally have the courage to turn toward the very aspects of yourself you were taught to fear. This is not a video about becoming your best self in the superficial sense. It's about becoming your real self, the one you've been running from, the one you buried under years of conditioning, shame, and self-rejection. Because Jung understood something few people are willing to confront. Until you face your shadow, until you integrate it, you will never be free. This is a journey into the terrifying, liberating process of individuation, the becoming of the whole self. It's brutal, it's beautiful, and it's the only way out of the cage you didn't even know you were in. So, consider this. What if the person you're most afraid to be is the only person who can save you? Let us begin. From the time you were a child, you have been trained in the art of becoming someone else. Not who you are, but who you are supposed to be. You were praised when you were polite, punished when you were loud. You were rewarded for being good. shamed for being difficult. Slowly, unconsciously, you began to carve away pieces of your soul to fit what others expected. You learned to play roles like the obedient son, the quiet daughter, the responsible student, the agreeable friend. And with every smile that wasn't real, every "I'm fine" that hid the chaos beneath the surface, you constructed what Jung called the persona, the mask. At first, this was simply a survival strategy. But over time, the mask became your identity. You started believing the lie. You began to believe that you are who you pretend to be, that the version of you who fits in, who keeps things under control, who avoids conflict and discomfort, that is who you truly are. But deep down, you know better. There is a part of you that never fully bought into the act, a part that whispers late at night, "There's more to me than this." The persona is not evil. It's not the enemy. It is necessary. We all need a way to function in society. But the moment you become the persona, the moment you forget it's a role, you lose something essential. You lose access to your full self. You start censoring your thoughts, dulling your instincts, and suppressing your emotions. You might call it maturity, professionalism, or being nice. But in truth, it's self-abandonment. You begin to fear your own power, mistrust your own desires, and hide your own needs. Eventually, you start confusing approval with love, fitting in with belonging, and control with safety. Think about it. How often do you say yes when you mean no? How often do you smile while feeling resentful, perform while feeling empty, or stay quiet when your soul is screaming to speak? You aren't being strong in those moments. You are being invisible. The mask may protect you from rejection, but it also shields you from intimacy, purpose, and authenticity. And the longer you wear it, the more disconnected you become from what's real. Jung warned us, every calling lies hidden in the shadow of the mask. The version of you that wants to create, to speak truth, to love fiercely, to stand up, to break rules. That version was exiled, banished into the unconscious, so the persona could survive. But survival is not the same as living, and the price you pay for staying socially acceptable is your soul. But here is the secret most people never dare to face. The parts of you that don't fit in are not your flaws. They are the keys to your liberation. Your anger, it's your boundary. Your ambition, it's your drive. Your desire, it's your vitality. Your weirdness, it's your originality. What you repress becomes your prison. What you reclaim becomes your power. So the question is, how do you find what's been lost? The answer lies in the part of your psyche that holds everything you've rejected, everything you were told to suppress, everything that scares you, the shadow. And it's waiting for you to turn around and face it. In the next part, we will descend deeper into the realm of the shadow and uncover how what you've been avoiding might be controlling you. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to Quiet Psychology. Thank you for your support. There is a place inside you where everything you've ever denied, suppressed, rejected, or feared has been buried. It's not gone. It didn't disappear. It didn't die. It just went underground. Jung called it the shadow, the unconscious dimension of the psyche, where all the parts of you that don't fit the persona are exiled. Every time you felt rage and were told to calm down. Every time you wanted to speak up but were told to stay quiet. every time you felt desire and were shamed for it. Those parts of you had nowhere to go. So you pushed them down. You tried to forget. And slowly, piece by piece, you became smaller, more acceptable, more tame, more polite. You performed. You adapted. You became normal. But you also became fragmented. And what you didn't realize is that the more you repress something, the more power it gains over you. You think you're in control. But the reality is, your shadow is that quiet voice of self-doubt that won't go away. That explosive anger that erupts out of nowhere. That shame that floods you when you speak your truth. That pattern that keeps repeating in your relationships. The envy, the bitterness, the self-sabotage, the guilt. That's not just how life is. That's your shadow running the show from behind the curtain. Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. You think you're choosing. You think you're making decisions based on reason, on logic, on values. But unless you've done the brutal work of confronting your shadow, much of what you call choice is actually compulsion. It's a defense mechanism dressed up as a plan. It's your wounded inner world projecting itself onto everything you see. And the most dangerous part? The shadow doesn't just hold the things you fear. It holds the things you need. Your power is in the shadow. Your vitality is in the shadow. Your creativity, sexuality, confidence, assertiveness, your raw instinct to live. They're all in there, buried under years of shame, guilt, and repression. You didn't lose them. You locked them away and threw away the key. But now the vault is cracking, and what's inside is begging to be seen. Most people run. They spend their whole lives avoiding their shadow, terrified that if they let it out, they'll become dangerous, selfish, monstrous. They confuse authenticity with destruction. But the real danger is not integrating it. Because what you repress will find a way out through breakdowns, addictions, rage, projection, and emptiness. The shadow doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It only becomes more chaotic. So the real question is this: do you want to keep pretending you're fine while secretly being ruled by everything you've refused to face? Or are you finally ready to look at what you've hidden? In the next part, we will confront the 4 deepest fears that keep you fragmented and explore how Jung's philosophy can help you reclaim the parts of you that were never wrong to begin with. This is where things get uncomfortable. But if you're still here, you're ready. If integrating your shadow were easy, everyone would do it. But they don't. Because fear stands in the way. Not surface-level fear. Not the kind you talk about casually. I'm talking about existential fear. The kind that threatens your identity, your sense of safety, your belonging. These fears are the invisible chains that keep you divided, exhausted, and trapped inside a version of yourself that feels increasingly false. Let's expose them. The first fear is this: if I accept my shadow, I will become a bad person. You have been taught to believe that your darker impulses define your morality, that anger makes you cruel, that ambition makes you selfish, that desire makes you immoral, that power makes you dangerous. So you suppress them, convinced that repression equals goodness. But Jung saw this as a tragic misunderstanding. The shadow is not only cruelty or evil. It is everything you are forced to disown. Legitimate rage, healthy sexuality, unclaimed strength, creative fire. When these energies are unconscious, they do become destructive. But when they are conscious, they become choice. Integration doesn't make you immoral. It makes you responsible. A person who knows their capacity for darkness is infinitely safer than someone who pretends it doesn't exist. The second fear cuts even deeper. If I am authentic, I will be rejected. And this fear isn't irrational. Jung never sugar-coated this. Yes, some people will reject you when you stop performing, when you stop being convenient, when you stop being predictable. But here's the truth. Most people never confront. You are already being rejected. Just not by others. By yourself. Every time you silence your truth to keep the peace, every time you betray your instincts for approval, you reinforce the most painful rejection of all, self-abandonment. You can be accepted for a mask and feel empty, or be rejected for your truth and feel alive. There is no path where everyone approves. You must choose who you are willing to disappoint. Then there is the fear of power. If I claim my power, I will hurt others. This fear often comes from witnessing power abused by parents, institutions, authority figures. So you associate power with domination, violence, control. You decide it's safer to be small, passive, harmless. But Jung made a crucial distinction. Repression of power does not make you peaceful. It makes you weak and resentful. True integrated power is not about crushing others. It's about boundaries, about saying no, about occupying space without apology. When power is denied, it leaks out sideways, through sarcasm, passive aggression, manipulation, self-sabotage. Power integrated becomes clarity. Power denied becomes poison. And finally, the most terrifying fear of all. I don't know who I am without my defenses. This is the fear no one wants to admit. You've built your entire identity around what you are not. I'm not angry. I'm not selfish. I'm not intense. I'm not like them. But what happens when you integrate the very traits you use to define yourself against? Your old identity collapses, and that feels like death. Jung understood this well. Individuation requires a symbolic death, the death of the false self. The ego panics when its familiar structure dissolves. But what feels like annihilation is actually rebirth. You don't lose yourself. You finally meet yourself. These fears are not weaknesses. They are gates. And on the other side of each gate is a version of you that is more whole, more grounded, more real. But understanding this intellectually is not enough. In the next part, we'll go beyond theory and enter the real work. The brutal, transformative process Jung called individuation. Not as an idea, but as a lived confrontation with yourself. This is where everything changes. We live in a culture that loves to romanticize the concept of self-discovery. Find your true self, we are told, as if the soul is a hidden gem waiting to be stumbled upon at a peaceful retreat or found within the pages of a comforting book. But Carl Jung offered a different, sharper truth. He knew that becoming who you truly are is not a process of discovery. It is a process of destruction. Jung called this individuation. It is the psychological journey toward becoming a whole, integrated self. This doesn't mean just the parts that society applauds. It doesn't mean just the polished, pleasant image you present to the world. It means the full spectrum of your being, light and dark, sacred and profane, noble and animal, Individuation isn't about adding more to who you are. It is about excavating the truth from beneath layers of programming, trauma, masks, and fear. It requires you to confront everything you have spent your life avoiding. You do not find yourself by asking, "Who am I?" You find yourself by asking, "What have I disowned in order to survive?" And here is the brutal reality Jung revealed. The more rejected a part of you is, the more critical it is to your wholeness. That means the parts you carry the most shame about, your rage, your lust, your ambition, your wildness, are not obstacles you need to overcome. They are the essential keys to your liberation. But to claim them, you must endure a kind of death. The death of the persona. The death of the identity you carefully constructed to be acceptable, successful, and lovable. That mask does not fall away easily. It is fused to your sense of self, which is why the process of individuation hurts. It is not a clean, linear path. It is a descent into the unknown, a confrontation with inner chaos. It often begins with a crisis, a breakup, burnout, a panic attack, or a nagging sense that your life no longer fits you. That is the sound of the psyche cracking open, demanding to be made whole. When this happens, you don't get to control what emerges. Dreams turn darker. Emotions intensify. Buried memories resurface. Desires you thought were wrong begin to demand your attention. The things you judged in others, you start to recognize in yourself. This is not a breakdown. It is a breakthrough. Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. To become whole, you must sacrifice the illusion of who you think you are. You must allow parts of your identity to die so that something more real can be born. And that rebirth doesn't happen just by sitting in a therapist's office. It doesn't happen through philosophy or theory alone. It happens through experience, through action, through risk, and through courage. Individuation is active. It is not a mental exercise. It is a daily confrontation. It requires you to step into the world, not as the version of yourself that pleases others, but as the one that terrifies you. Because that version is free, and freedom is always terrifying to a psyche trained to survive through submission. But what does this actually look like in real life? That is what we will explore next, because theory without embodiment is just another form of avoidance. In the next part, we will dive into concrete, confrontational practices drawn from Jung's own methods that can help you not just understand your shadow, but integrate it. This is the moment where you stop thinking about change and start becoming it. If what you are hearing resonates with you, you will find real value in the resources linked in the pinned comment. Beyond the Shadow breaks down Jung's core ideas, while Dialogues with the Unconscious gives you a 30-day path to apply them. Understanding the shadow is not enough. Reading Jung, quoting Jung, even intellectually agreeing with his theories, none of it matters unless you do the work. Because the shadow does not dissolve through awareness alone. It demands confrontation. It demands integration. And that means stepping into the fire of your own discomfort and standing face to face with the parts of yourself you have always tried to escape. So, how do you do that? First, you begin by pulling your projections back. Jung taught that what you most hate, judge, or obsess over in others is often a mirror of your own unconscious, the very traits you disown in yourself. So start here. Make a list of 5 traits that trigger you in other people: arrogance, laziness, selfishness, manipulation, coldness. Then ask yourself, where does this live in me? Not in theory, not abstractly, but specifically. When have you acted this way? Where does that impulse show up in your life, even subtly? This isn't about shame. It's about reclaiming power. As long as you project, you are at war with your own psyche. But when you reclaim the trait, you are no longer triggered. You are whole. Next, engage in active imagination. This Jungian method invites you to initiate a dialogue with your shadow directly. In a quiet, meditative state, visualize the part of yourself you fear the most: your rage, your desire, your sadness, your ambition, as a figure. Give it a face. Let it speak. Ask it questions. Why are you here? What do you want? What happens when I ignore you? Write down what it says. Don't censor it. Let it speak freely. You will be surprised. Often, what you feared is not a monster, but a part of you that has been exiled for so long it had to scream to be heard. Then, begin micro-experiments in embodiment. Shadow integration is not philosophical. It is behavioral. It must show up in the real world. If you fear being assertive, practice saying no without apology. If you fear being seen, post something vulnerable. If you repress playfulness, do something useless, silly, or creative, just because it feels good. These are not small acts. They are revolutions. Each one reclaims a piece of your authenticity. The goal is not to become someone else. It is to remove the barriers between you and who you already are. Write a letter from your future self, the version of you who has integrated their shadow. Let that self speak to you. Let it tell you what changed, what died, and what was reclaimed. Let it guide you from the other side of transformation. This isn't fantasy. It is a dialogue with your potential, and it often reveals what your conscious mind is too afraid to admit. Then, perform a ritual death of the persona. Jung emphasized that the mask must fall for the self to emerge. Identify the role you've been playing: the nice guy, the high achiever, the caregiver, the perfect daughter. Write a goodbye letter to that role. Thank it for protecting you when you needed it. Then burn it, or bury it, or dissolve it in water. Say out loud, I am not just this role. I am everything I have hidden. I am the full spectrum. These symbolic acts matter. The unconscious understands ritual far more deeply than words. And finally, journal your shadow daily. Ask yourself, what impulse did I repress today, and why? Where did I feel fake or performative? What truth did I swallow? Who triggered me? And what does that say about me? This is not just journaling. It is a mirror, a scalpel, a portal. The more you confront, the less power your unconscious has over you. And the more you reclaim, the more energy becomes available to you. Energy that was previously wasted on suppressing, denying, and maintaining the mask. And that energy, that is life force. Once it is back in your hands, everything changes. You stop living a life of shoulds. You stop being predictable. You stop being nice. And you start being real. That is when people begin to say, you've changed. But what they really mean is, you've stopped hiding. But how do you know if this work is actually working? In the final part, we will look at the unmistakable signs that you are becoming the person you used to fear, and why that is the most powerful thing you will ever do. When you start doing shadow work for real, things don't get prettier at first. They get messier. People imagine that healing looks like peace, clarity, and spiritual enlightenment. But in the beginning, it looks like confusion, emotional intensity, internal chaos, and identity collapse. And that is exactly how you know it is working. Because when you finally stop suppressing what you feel everything. All the sadness, rage, longing, desire, grief, and joy that you have numbed for years comes flooding back. It is overwhelming because you've been taught that feeling deeply is dangerous. But it is not. What is dangerous is numbness. What is dangerous is pretending. One of the first signs that you are stepping into your wholeness is that you become less predictable. You no longer say yes out of obligation. You stop laughing at jokes that insult your integrity. You stop smiling just to make others comfortable. People may start calling you difficult or different. But the truth is, you are just not available for performance anymore. You aren't interested in being a projection. You want to be real. Another sign is that you become more polarizing. Some people will be drawn to you with intensity because your authenticity gives them permission to be more honest themselves. Others will pull away because your truth threatens the roles they still rely on. That is okay. Individuation isn't about being liked. It is about being true. And the more you align with your truth, the more your relationships shift. The fake ones dissolve. The real ones deepen. You also begin to feel less defensive. Criticism doesn't destroy you like it used to. You can hear hard truths without collapsing, because you are no longer holding up a fragile mask. You know your light and your darkness. You have sat with your wounds. You have stopped pretending to be perfect. That self-acceptance creates inner stability, a kind of groundedness that doesn't need constant validation. Perhaps most importantly, you start reclaiming energy. Energy that was once spent repressing, hiding, pretending, and performing. Now that energy is available for creation, for purpose, for connection. You feel more alive. Not in a shallow motivational way, but in the sense that you are finally inhabiting your body, your voice, your instincts, your desire. You laugh louder. You cry deeper. You speak more clearly. You love more fiercely. And yes, you will still struggle. You will still fall into old patterns. That doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human. Jung never promised transcendence. He promised wholeness. And wholeness includes contradiction. It includes imperfection. It includes falling down and getting back up again and again. But this time as someone who knows who they are. So if you find yourself becoming less comfortable, more intense, more honest, and more alive, congratulations. You are becoming the person you were once afraid to be. The version of you that doesn't betray itself to be accepted. The version of you that no longer hides behind the mask. That version, that is not a monster. That is not a problem to fix. That is yourself, finally emerging from the shadows. Now I want to hear from you. What is one part of yourself you have been afraid to accept? Drop it in the comments, even if it's messy, even if it's hard to say. This is the space for truth, not performance. And someone else reading your words might feel a little less alone. And if this video made you stop and think, don't stop here. Watch the next one. You've already come this far. Keep going.